Oh, okay, Ava. Let's see what we can do for an hour. How how did your music, how did your interest in music begin, and that kind of thing?
Well, my father was a minister, so I have lots of brothers and sisters. We were all in the choir at church, and I guess what I usually tell people is I sang before I knew I could sing because we were in the choir, but I wasn't looking at being a singer ever. But definitely, we all took piano lessons, so from 6 years old, I took piano lessons, and then I played the flute and went to the tenor sax and still taking piano lessons, all the while singing in the church choir. So music's been around a long time.
Um, so so it was the introduction into the church basically, and so your first kind of your first singing that you would have done would have just been in the choir while you're in the congregation.
No, in the choir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And then and then so and then and yeah. So and at what kind of age is this?
Around the age of birth, actually, because my mother sang to me while I was still in utero, and there was always singing in the house and the family and everything. So I like to think that the music was getting to me before I was born. And then before I can even remember, or maybe even like 4 years old, they had a little thing with the little bitty kids called the Sunshine Choir, and they would, little bitty bitty people going, Jesus loves me, this I know. So really, really young, I was already, singing with the choir.
And so was there? Do you remember then? Did you then? Did you do a solo then? Because the choir is obviously a group thing. And then do you remember the first solo performance and how that happened? And maybe you can just talk about that a bit.
My first church solo was hysterical. And had I gone with what happened that Sunday, I probably would never have sung again. It was a gospel song called Sign Me Up. And I may have been 9 or 10 remembering this. And after I got through, the words were, sign me up for the Christian Jubilee, write my name on the roll. But when I came in for my part of the solo after church, and everybody was like, oh, look at Miss DuPree's girl, you sure did sing. That's all the old folks and everything. But one of the little boys, I ain't gonna call his name in case he ever sees this, but he said, you sound country. He goes, you have a country twang. And it hurt me so bad, and I cried, and I was like, Mom, he said I sounded country. And it just really broke me up because I didn't want to sound country, which is funny because we listen to a lot of country music at home, but I didn't want to sound country. And flash forward all the years later, what do? I record a country blues album. And that signature thing that's in my voice is actually part of my voice. And because I am from the South, I do have a twang, just a hint of a twang in there. And now I embrace it because it's that thing that always lets you know it's me. It's just a little bit of a bend that's like, oh yeah, that's Ava.
So yeah, and so who were you listening to back then, and what was the, as we know, the whole your early influences, and what were you really liking, yeah, what were you first exposed to? Because I guess when we first find music, we don't even know if we kind of like what we first hear. We're trying to work out what music is. So
What I first remember listening to musically, I remember listening to a lot of groups. James Cleveland and his gospel choirs. Listened to Joe Cocker, listened to Ray Charles. What was her name? Danielle Bell Hall, who was a great gospel singer. Rest in peace. I and then there were shows. There were shows like the Lawrence Welk Show, and those people I remember really being influenced by the women in their ball gowns with the sequins on them, and they would just stand there and lightly sway. And Lawrence Welk, Hee Haw, which was a country music show that came on, listened to the Oak Ridge Boys, which of course is a country group, but their harmonies were so tight. And we had harmonies when we just sit around as a family. I mean, come on, I'm number 8. So with that many people singing, you got all the parts and some you didn't want. So early on, and I remember my first concert that I remember going to, it goes back and forth. I can't remember if it was Tom Jones with my godmother or Andre Crouch with my sister. So it was either, but Tom Jones, that was crazy because my godmother took me to that. Couldn't believe my mother let me go because we weren't really allowed to do that sort of thing. But women were throwing panties. And I never know to this day, was it panties they had on when they came to the concert, or did they just bring an extra pair in their purse so they could throw them on the stage? But the way he commanded the audience, that definitely, someone who commanded the audience like that was a major influence. And then with Andre Crouch, it was a gospel group, we listened to a lot of his music in the house. Going to that concert was different because it was equally black and white in the crowd, and generally at the Coliseum in Knoxville, when blacks and whites got together, there was almost always some kind of a fight or a riot. And to see a concert like that and not have a fight break out, and so I really, really was listening to Andre Crouch because was major good harmonies also too, and of course gospel music. It to see that many people in harmony at peace was a really big deal. And I don't think I would go to another concert until I was maybe 10 years old. And that was the Jackson 5.
And what was just if you can recall that, what kind of venue was it?
It was at the Coliseum still.
So it's big,
it was a huge venue. That was pretty funny because Sergeant Cabrera, who was my best friend at the time, it was Stacy's father. I spent the night at their house, and he was going to take me and Stacy and Nita, her sister, to the concert. And we got in a fight on the way before we left, and he threatened not to let us go because I just idly walked by and said, "I'm going to marry Michael Jackson." And she was like, "No, you're not. I am." And we got in a big fight, and she pushed me in the toy box, and I scratched her face. And Stacy's very, very light-skinned black woman. And so when we got there, my hair was a mess, and she had a big old red welt going down the side of her face where I'd scratched her because we'd had this fight over who was going to marry Michael. And boy, you should have seen us crying, buckets and buckets of tears when Sergeant Cabrera came in there. He was a Marine, and he came in there, all 6'2" of him, threatening that we wouldn't go to the concert. And she pushed me first. No, she scratched my face, that sort of thing. But yeah, it was a great concert. It was just jam-packed. And of course, no riots broke out at that one either.
And what time, when was that?
That was when I was 10 years old when I went to see the Jackson 5.
So that's so we're talking early 70s kind of time.
Yeah. Oh, are we giving my age away? No, just kidding. No. It's okay. I don't mind.
Some people don't remember exactly when they were around. So, okay, so far you kind of it's the church thing that kind of got you into music and so yeah, just maybe to sum up. So one of your first performances would have been in a church.
Yes.
Yes. You would have performed in front of the local congregation, and what would you sung 4 songs or just one song?
Just one solo. Yeah. One solo that almost ruined me for singing. I think the next big solo I had would have been wasn't the 6th grade, it was the 4th grade. And it was at school at my elementary, and I was chosen to sing one of the leads on Bridge Over Troubled Water. And it was a really strange experience, yet again, because usually boys have the voice change thing. I was like in a bad episode of the Brady Bunch because I don't know if you remember the episode where Peter's voice changed like right before they had the big concert. Yeah, that happened to me during Bridge Over Troubled Water at the little graduation ceremony that they were having where I was singing and my voice changed and it didn't go up. It went down. And that's supposed to happen to a boy and not a girl. My voice went down and it's been going down ever since. And I'm a true contralto, which means that I've got some nice, really, I could actually hit very clearly some baritone notes, but I also have an upper register and I can do whistle tones also. And it's the midsection that gets lost in there, but definitely a contralto. And that, of course, because every girl is taught that you want to sing high, sing high, sing high. That's not the warmest thing you want to be listening to when you're listening to blues. Is you don't want to screechy soprano blues is not my favorite thing to listen to. I'd rather hear a low, warm tone, and I'm glad now that I'm blessed with that warm, low tone.
Okay, that's cool. So should we move on? Should we talk about Paris a bit and what happened recently and how that came about and what that all kind of was? So I guess if I lead you in a bit with what just happened recently in Paris with Wally and
Wally, it's first of all you have to know I've had a couple of dreams in life, and some people have dreams and some people have dreams realized. Singing in Paris is a realized dream now because I've done it, and it's amazing how it came about. My boyfriend, Wally Holmes, we have a bit of an age difference between us, and we've been the brunt of several jokes regarding that, and we really don't care, but we've explained it or not explained it so much that it came to be a show because everybody says, oh, he's so much older than you, he must be your sugar daddy. And so one day I was just like, why don't we have a show called Sugar and Daddy, since everybody thinks that's what you are? And it was like, it's not bad. Well, what would that look like? And he goes, well, why don't I sing the sugar songs? And why don't you sing the daddy songs? And so we started putting it together, taking in all those elements that seem to be trouble, which is generationally musical gaps, and then not, because we're together, and finding those things. And then John Felton heard about it, and he was like, you guys need to come and do it in Paris. You need to come and do it in Paris. And I was like, ah. And so we kind of did a debut of it in Palm Springs, and then we did it again in LA, prepping for doing it in Paris. And in Paris, we hired, Wally plays the trumpet, of course, but the backing band, we hired local musicians, Alain Jean-Marie on piano, Michel Benita on bass, and Steve McCraven on drums. And of course, as professionals, they were able to just read our charts down and with a bit of a rehearsal beforehand. And it was dream realized. And the big worry, of course, was the language barrier because with 30 days to learn French, oh yeah, I didn't. It just didn't happen. And but it wasn't. The music somehow speaks through the language barriers, and so even the people in the audience who didn't speak any English understood what we were putting across. And so our jokes didn't fall flat, all of them. Well, okay, a couple of them fell flat, but it was very well received. And I want to do it more. I want to do it in Japan too, which is another dream of a place that I'd like to perform someday.
But yeah, so you think in the near future, it's this show, you will continue with it around America, kind of all around?
Yes, yes, we're going to revamp. That's the only thing about doing something new. The first few times, you're still working a learning curve. And so we saw what worked and what didn't work, and there's some things that need to be changed a little bit, and we're okay with that because we realize that when you stop learning, you're dead. And we're open to always the education of it. And so we've already discussed what's going to stay and what's going to go. And what we can do to make it more interesting and more fun, and also more inclusive for the audience.
What do you think might be some of these? Just to give, can you give a few specifics of the things you'd like to change, or how it might adjust?
Adjustment wise, there's a couple of songs that I think I don't want to do anymore, and then there's I want to add some Beatles to the show, just because as far as songs or even song titles or groups that are instant recognition, so that no matter where you are in the world, there's pretty much a general group of people. So there's a Beatles song that I'm looking to do in the show. I noticed when I was watching the playback that Wally didn't play the trumpet near as much as I would have liked him to. And so we're going to add more trumpet into the show, and then probably one more harmonic duet between the two of us.
Which Beatles track do you think
Something.
you're not going to say?
No, it's something.
Oh, so the track something.
Something.
From Abbey Road.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, it's a very nice, gentle track, isn't it? Really?
Not when I do it.
Isn't it?
Oh no, I have a really lovely arrangement of it, and I've done it before, and it's always very well received. And no, I'm not giving a preview.
You couldn't give a little hint of how you might.
Let's just say it's.
Come on, it would be nice. Just a little gentle idea.
Let's just say it starts easy, and then it gets rough. And that's all I'm giving away. It doesn't stay easy.
Can we just have just a few seconds, Ava?
You know what? Just
this is all very especially secret, isn't it?
it's. Let's just say there's headbanging involved.
So I can't convince you just to give. It's only me. Just give me a little bit of something.
You know what? It doesn't work without the bass, and there's. I need the bass player for that part. No, just trust me. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, no. Sounds good. It does sound. It sounds very good. So yeah, I mean, as you've just said, it's like Paris is. You've summed up Paris. Paris is a dream realised, and I don't know. Can you think of any other things that you want to say about the Paris show? Anything else you feel that kind of came out of it that is because I think as you said to me the other night, this is your first time to Europe, isn't it? So.
Well, yes and no. I was in Europe a few years ago. Specifically, I was in Rome for 4 days, and that was it. And so this is the first time I've actually, and that was a round of get off the plane, get in the car, go to a meeting, go to rehearsal, go to the show, you have 1 day off, run around, shop, get some shoes, and then get on the plane and leave and go back. So I really I didn't see any Europe or anything like that. I ate some really good food, and matter of fact, I never even got off LA time. It was such a whirlwind that I don't even think I had jet lag. And so this has been different because I've had time to see. I've made some nice connections here. I've met some people that I know I'm going to know until I leave this earthly plane. That was good about making those kinds of connections. I've met some musicians that I want to work with again, as soon as possible. I've gotten to, experience, because we were hosted, I didn't so much do the touristy bit of looking at France, but I got to live in a place where people who live in France all the time live, and go around and live a day in the life of a Parisian and stuff like that. And that was it's much different, and it gives you more of the flavor of it. And definitely I'll be returning to Paris, and I'll be returning to Montpellier also, which I love.
That's cool. Also, maybe just describe the barge, because it's kind of a bit of an unusual venue, and how you found that, and just how people might understand where the performance took place.
The performance was on a barge, which is a stationary boat, if you will, not like working on Norwegian cruise lines or one of the big things, but it has a lovely stage. And that was interesting because the piano player that we had really likes acoustic grand, and so, but there's no way that could be brought in there ever. And it was okay though. So we brought in the electric, and it's not the wiggly, we're on a boat rocking the boat kind of thing. But it is a small. I think we were over the capacity, which was 50, which was nice. It's very intimate, and our show actually plays really well to an intimate audience, and so you actually can see and connect with people, which is good when you're singing about love came and love went and things like that. It's there's food there, there's a full bar, there's two upper decks, and then the lower stage area, where it's so funny because a couple of days before our show, we saw a comedy act there, an improv group, and we also saw a reggae band that was there. And so it houses, the Peniche Antipode can house several different kinds of things, and we fit in there just fine. And acoustically, and I will say the staff is amazing, and the sound guy is bar none. And so it was able to take the change from a really raucous reggae band to the dulcet, more pulled back sounds that we have. Although, yeah, that doesn't include Proud Mary. But it was able to take that change as far as sound-wise. The guy really handled that well. And everybody ate and drank and had a really good time.
Because I think, as John said to me, it was the first time that the barge had actually had your kind of show. There's never been anything like that on the barge. So it's kind of it's significant for the barge and John and everyone who's involved in the barge and for you. So it's kind of it's been however we describe it, a kind of a unique little thing that's happened, really, hasn't it? That's come together, which.
Yeah, Sugar and Daddy did it first, as far as bringing the swinging jazz to the barge. Sugar and Daddy did it first. I like being first.
Yeah, and I like to think as well, Ava. It's also for me, it's a part of the whole. There's a huge tradition of jazz in Paris, isn't there?
Oh, yes, there is a long-standing tradition of jazz, but what I've heard as I've talked to musicians, that they are experiencing the same problems that we're experiencing in America as far as the continuing of jazz, and it's worse in America, strangely enough, which is weird because it's our art form and people don't care about it enough to pay for it. They want to hear things that have nothing to do with music, and they're teaching it to this next generation. And people are running around calling themselves musicians and producers and everything, and they don't even know how to play a scale. And they want it for free. They want you to just give it to them, and they're willing to go on, and they have a Napster or whatever, and they want you. They don't really care how you eat at night or whatever, that that this is what you do for a living, and that they mustn't steal your music, that you think it's not, or that the 99 cents you pay for the download of my song isn't going to matter to me, but it is going to matter to me, because it's not the same as when you had the big record companies. I'm an independent, so every 99-cent download of my song matters to me. And so I don't think it's ever going to die, because there are people like me, like Wally, like Alan, like Michelle, whatever, or people that I know in America that are just going to do it, and they're going to make sure that you at least teach one more of the next generation what this music is and why it should sound the way it does, and what goes in to being good at what you do and how to get it out there and where the music is in your heart and in your body so that someone else will want to play it. It won't die, but it's definitely, it's a hard road to hoe to.
Well, it's something that everyone who makes a creative work or something, it's a very difficult thing to as you're saying, controlling the revenue stream is, and because there've been such massive changes in distribution, which is the internet, that's made this whole process unwieldy and uncontrollable, and you have to. I don't know, Ava. It's an extremely long conversation about how you actually keep the control of your work, basically, because it's as soon as it's on the internet, then it's distributed, and so it seems, the way I understand it, one of the controls is by carefully deciding how much information to put on the internet, your content, mixed with who you trust to give it to as well at times, or even sell it to, because the thing, once it's sold, you've also lost a lot of control, because it goes to the internet as soon, 2 hours after you've given it to them, or sold it to them. So it's very difficult. And it's not just the independents who face it; it's the Hollywood studios as well. Who, there is no, as far as I can tell, there is no control mechanism in place for stopping the copying of work. It's just impossible, it seems.
Well, and I guess one of the things that I do now when I write new music, because I am a songwriter myself, is that I don't let go of it until, the latest album that I'm working on right now is, I'm just not putting up. Some people are like, you finish the song, go ahead and put it up. No, it's not going up until I'm ready, until I say. So at least I can say how it goes out there. That much I can control. And if it doesn't, because the thing is, you want to be heard, but you don't want to get a 3-day notice to pay rent or quit on your door. That's not fun. And so I can control how I release it. And then after that, I just have to hope that someone out there has some integrity and that they'll pay that 99 cents to download my song.
That's all. That's the continued point, which I guess has always been made, is basically that everyone know, really, if we want any of this stuff to continue, you are, every now and again, as much as you can, you'll have to pay for this CD, for this show, and all that kind of stuff. It's not. It never has been a free thing. It never really should be, and it kind of just, and it isn't a free thing, really, is the whole deal. Anyway, as we know, it's not such a nice conversation. Let's talk. Maybe that should talk more about about what you feel jazz is, and who you maybe like, and also and how the jazz thing works, because there's always the it's always spoken about as being improvised, so that's all people are like, so what, it's completely unplanned, you don't really know what you're doing, so how does it work, and how do you work with musicians on stage when you're obviously having to communicate to understand how to play with each other and all that kind of thing, because that's very fascinating.
It's interesting, because according to who you talk to, especially since I've put out a country blues album, I've put out a children's learning album for English, and I have a jazz album. I also am in the process of doing a gospel album. The element that is me is what goes into all of these things. According to who you talk to, they'll tell you Ava is not a jazz singer. Ava's a blues singer. But there's a whole nother group of people who say, oh no, Ava's not a blues singer. She's definitely not a blues singer. There's a whole group of people who will tell you I am not a gospel singer. I don't do lots of runs and all that. That's so not me. I don't do that. I am a storyteller, which sits me in a weird place. I do sing jazz and I do sing blues. My thing is to get a point across. I want to tell a story, and there's definitely, I swing. Jazz does swing. Blues can swing too, and gospel can definitely swing. And country can swing. I have that about me. As far as improvising, yeah, I definitely improvise. It's different than musical theater, which is what I came out of after, growing out of church. I went into musical theater. And of course, this is the way you're going to do it every time because you're in a show. So there's not really any improv because you want to shock the rest of the actors. So you're going to do it that way. I don't do it the same way every time. And that's no matter what I'm singing. But what happens when you're singing and a gnat or a fly flies in your mouth? What comes out next? What do you do then? Now that's jazz. What do you do with a fly in your throat? How do you not let the audience know that you may die? Those things that happen then, the fun stuff. One of my drummers one time, he went to do a thing. He caught the stick, it flipped off. He had one stick. He's playing with the one stick and he's grappling in the floor for the other stick. Where is it? Keeping that rhythm, keeping that beat and doing all of that stuff and then coming back in and never really missing like that. That's jazz to me too. Those fun things that happen. And then challenging each other on stage, hearing something. Maybe one guy's taking a solo and you hear him do like a really cool thing. Then when it's your turn to come in, you go in and grab what he did. He recognizes it and you're like, yeah, we're smoking now. All of those things are in there. Yeah, you're improvising. And that's very important. And living in that moment, just being where you are right then and letting that happen. And knowing that maybe whatever's going on right now will never, ever happen again. But right now, it's real. That's jazz.
And so it doesn't necessarily take hours of rehearsal to get the show working. With you come together with a group of musicians and you all kind of communicate clearly, I guess, with each other with what's required, and sometimes could it feel like you've all sort of understood what needs to be done within like half an hour or so, really, rather than like, and then on other occasions would it be like, no, God, it's taken us 5 hours to kind of get to the same place?
Actually, it does take hours and hours of rehearsal at home by yourself before I ever meet you. I rehearse my things so that I have a certain set of responses, body-wise, vocally. Wally's practicing his trumpet 2 hours every day, running the scale. I'm pushing my voice, trying to see where can I go here, where can I go there. These guys are over there. So yes, they have rehearsed. What happens is, as we separately rehearse, then when we come together, hopefully the music and especially when you're dealing with the Great American Songbook, those songs and things that we know when we get together, there is a point where here's where we meet and this is what we all know. Now what you're going to do. And so that does make it easier. And that's why you should be able to go to Germany or France or America. When you're working like that, there's these songs and we should be able to come together and sound like we've been playing together our whole lives. With a show like Sugar and Daddy, which is a timed show that has verbal lead-ins, jokes, and things like that, that is going to take a different kind of rehearsal. But as far as the actual music, unless you're doing some kind of starts and stops, or like right here, I'm going to say a funny thing right in the song and I need a drum hit. I need a cymbal, I need that right there because it's going to make the joke work. Yes, those things need to be rehearsed, but as far as the basic music, you should have rehearsed at home.
But and then all you see, and for people to understand the Sugar and Daddy show, so from what you've just said to me, it isn't just a jazz show, because it's not the because some jazz shows are completely improvised, aren't they? Is that
Yeah, well, some are, yeah, but then you take someone like a Nancy Wilson. It's jazz, but I don't think, except for people's individual solos, I don't think it's completely improvised. I think, some things are set. I think there's a difference between a jazz jam and a set show. And you know what you're going into. There's an American musician that I know of who is on tour right now in Europe, and even though there's going to be a point in that show where he lets the band just fly and create on the spot, because he is so large, there's going to be some people going to be calling for some songs they know of him to do, and those things, you get to a point where people know and they want to hear that one lick that you did on the album when you made it the first time in '74. You got to go back and hit that lick because you know the audience is waiting for it. There's little things like that where it's still jazz and you still build on it and create from what you did. But there is a point where you have to give people what they want.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's this whole thing is a mixture of you need to give people what they want, but you also most probably need to
Feed yourself
and challenge them as well, and show them that there's kind of, it doesn't just have to be the kind of whatever the standards and all that kind of stuff. It's people, it's nice, nice to be introduced, even if you're say not challenging the form of the music. Then there can be, maybe this isn't challenging, but just introducing people to old tracks that they didn't know, because there's been so much music made that there's a lot of whatever you want to describe unknown or slightly obscure stuff. That this big Jazz in Paris CD collection that I always go on about, there's bits of music there that's just kind of, it's very unknown. Because it's hours and hours of material, and so through the label that releases that, it will introduce people to things, and so I guess that's all. I guess all I'm saying is that that's kind of part of what your job is, I guess, isn't it? Is to you might go and dig some track up from somewhere and think, this will be good to put in, because then people would be kind of like, right, I didn't know that, and I like that.
Yeah, I love taking a song that that would never be thought of as a jazz tune, and putting a little arrangement on it and doing something and introducing it to people in another way. That's a lot of fun for me, and making it and going, oh, I never even thought of that as jazz, but that can be jazz too. That's always fun to push. And to give out, because when you give out and then you've got an audience that's giving back to you, it does take you to another place where, and when it's really good, it's to the point where you feel like you're flying. And there's something about those moments that that when you're having down times and you're not working so much, sometimes it's just the memory of those moments that propel you to stay in the game until the next one.
So, we maybe because we've not spoken about, because you have written some pieces of music. So maybe as we all try and fathom out how that creative process works, maybe just discuss, Ava, how do you do that? because before these things exist, there is nothing. There is the blank CD that's got nothing on it. There is, and you put it on and there's nothing there, but somehow people like you fill it with what we understand to be music. But how does that happen? Because
my whole process of songwriting is probably completely different than, definitely different than Wally's, because for Wally is like, he doesn't consider himself a songwriter because he doesn't sit down and write every day. And he tells me I'm not a songwriter because I don't sit down and write every day. Well, I don't want to force myself. I want to get it when I get it. One time I was on the 101 freeway in Los Angeles, and I'm literally just, and I had a thing come to me, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. I had to pull over in the shoulder and pull out my pad and write it down right then because it was just coming to me. And generally, I get lyrics and music at the same time. And there you go. And there I am hoping a cop doesn't come by because I'm not supposed to be in the shoulder and certainly not to be writing a song. But that's how it hits me. I'll just be doing something. I was out at a alumni event for the University of Tennessee at a pizza place. And I heard this lady asked one of my other friends, where was her husband? Why wasn't he there at the party? Because he went to school with us also. And she goes, he's at home. He's in man jail. And she goes, what's man jail? And as I heard it, I said, I know what it is. I know where man jail is. You know, every man, if you think about it, has been in man jail at some point or other. Well, at that moment, I disappeared outside. They didn't know where I was. I was outside writing my song, Man Jail, which is on my Blues for Sister DuPree album. And I do that a lot. I over-listen to people's conversations sometimes, and when I hear the ridiculous things that go on, a lot of it comes out of that. For me, I'm more of a humorous writer when it comes to the blues. It's the human condition. It's that silly thing that either only happens to me or seemingly you that I write about, because sometimes people just need to find the humor in a situation to help them feel better and feel like going on to the next level. For instance, years ago, I was, during the 1982 World's Fair, I was working at a gate, and I was working the VIP gate, and one of the things that you're supposed to do is always greet the VIPs, say something nice, make them feel warm and welcome to Knoxville, and individually find something nice to say about each person. This one lady comes up, and I was like, welcome to the World's Fair. I'm Ava. How can anything I can do to be of assistance? Da 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 da. And when are you due? She wasn't pregnant. She was fat. And she said it. She goes, oh, honey, I ain't pregnant. I'm just fat. I was on the floor practically. My face was on the floor. You don't recover from that moment. You don't. You're just like, well, that line is now in a song that I have called I'm Just Saying. And I'm Just Saying is pretty much about those stupid things, in the non-recovery from it. And that's where I come from as a songwriter. I'm kind of amazed now at the songwriting process and how many people are involved. Sometimes they hire like 7 and 12 people who are all going to add a line to a song. It does not take all that. It is not brain surgery that way. There is a process. You need to know sometimes if you're going to have an A section, a B, A, or if you're going A, B, A, or, or how that kind of format in things like that. Or maybe you want to hire someone, you say, I want this to be a hip hop song, bringing in someone who knows more about what the hip hop beat is. That process for me would only happen after I'm done with the music and the lyrics. If I ask, generally I don't play well with others like that. Wally and I have written together. We've written some gospel music together, and that did go well. And I'm learning how to play well with others a little bit more, but I think sitting in a room with 12 people talking about y'all are going to write a song together would make me nuts. I just don't think it's necessary. I mean, Rodgers and Hart, or, just some of the people, Lieber and Stoller, yeah, they work together. And I don't think Cole Porter did not need a committee to write the music. And I don't need a committee either.
No, because it's there. As you've started to reel off there all the name, and Lennon and McCartney's another thing, and it's the decision-making process, because I think, as we all know, there's no right or wrong way to do this stuff, and so with committees there's so many directions that are suggested that everyone might not know what to do, whereas two people, it's quite minimal.
It is. One of the people that I've written with a lot in the past is a guy by the name of Pablo Aguirre. And Pablo and I are like the dream team. We really are. When I go for it, he's like in my head. And you would think, sometimes when I'd get finished, I'd be like, who wrote the song, you or me? And that's what it needs to be when you've got someone musically and you can marry the lyrics and the melody together like that. And he is the co-producer with me on my Melody of Memory, the children's CD, and we worked that out very well together. I've been blessed pretty much to write with the ones that, when the few times I've done it, it's just worked out really, really well. And there's a couple of times where it did not work well, where someone says, let's write together, let's create, and you sit down at the end and you realize that you personally have done all the work and they've not contributed, but they want to make sure that when you do the paperwork that they're going to get half of it. It's just like a drag.
Is there sometimes with pieces, are there certain songs that you work up to a certain level and you kind of decide at that point, man, this is not really working, and I don't know who to call up to help make, to realise the piece, so you put it down, and then 5 years later you know where to go back to, and you might kind of revisit that work and kind of go, all right, we never really kind of realised it properly back then, but now, okay, yeah, but just because I just met that person then, and okay, so let's do that.
Nope. I generally, that's actually how I finished my book of poetry. I published a book of poetry years ago. And sometimes when I'm writing and the lyric just isn't going where, and I'll look at it and I'm like, wait a minute, is this a poem or is this lyrics to a song? And then I'll read it out loud. This isn't a song at all. This is a poem. And it goes to and so that's how I continue filling up sometimes and I'm working on a new book of poetry now with, and sometimes it's not a song, but I generally don't revisit like that. But it may be a poem after all. And then there's a couple times where I've written poems and then later added music to it and realized it was a song the whole time. That's happened. But generally the other way, I just leave it for poetry.
Okay, so you'd kind of maybe just every now and again you might pick those up and have a flick through and kind of go, oh, it was kind of interesting that I wrote that at that time, and as you're saying, you leave them back there. They're just,
yeah. I don't go bring it to somebody. I told you I don't play well with others. My sandbox.
Okay, that's cool. I don't know. So, maybe I've just got the very broad question of, I don't know, some of your most interesting moments and memories of what you do, and I guess maybe, as you've already said, one of them, but it's a very recent one, is the thing in Paris. So, has there been other things like Paris, or that you might have felt taught you a lot, or just the significant moments that
Taught me a lot. Significant moments. A significant moment that taught me a lot was, obviously my mother is dead, but I have a lady who is taken over being my mom, was given that job by my mother before she died, Eve Evans. And not even a year ago, matter of fact, she called me up on stage to sing with her during a show, and she called up a song that I had written that I hadn't practiced in a long time, that I proceeded to forget the words to. My own song. And in that moment, I was like, you need to be ready. You need to be ready at all times. And even as you're learning the new things, you need to go back and revisit and revisit. And you don't need that to happen ever again. And I was making them up on stage, and only a few people who were in the audience who had, knew what I'd written before, knew that I was all over the place, just creating on the spot. And I was like, but I didn't like that feeling of not knowing. I do like to improvise, but when it's a set of things that are supposed to rhyme in a certain way, I just didn't like that feeling. And so I decided then not to put myself in that position ever again. And so that was pretty significant as far as a learning thing. I think I learn every day from all kinds of things. My cat teaches me. Kids are a wealth of lessons for me. And so I don't know, probably at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to wake up with a really significant thing that I wish I'd said. That I'm more of a prankster. When I recall things that are fun, one of the fun things that I remember, Wally plays the song flute, and he bills himself as the world's greatest song flute player. We bill him as the world's only song flute player, and it's really fun. But one of the pranks I played on him one year at the Sweet and Hot Music Festival was I'd gotten together with some people at my church, and I was like, you know what? Let's get Wally this year. Let's get some song flutes. And so we ordered them on the internet, and we practice when the saints go marching in. So at the time when he says, now I'd like to invite up our girl singer, Miss Ava DuPree, I said, I'd like to invite up some people because I'm tired of Wally saying he's the world's only song flute player. And I called up all these people, whipped out their song flutes, and we all did When the Saints Go Marching In. The look on his face. Just that, I gotcha. I love getting gotchas, that's fun, and I love the big pranks. I am a prankster like that, and I can take as well as receive. I mean, I can receive as well as dish it out, that thing. So,
and also is as part of the creative process of trying to understand, like we've touched on, what the audience want and how they could be challenged. Yeah, How do you find trying to keep abreast of what's going on in music, every single day? Because they're basically, I think, as we all know now, everyone's reached a point where there is so much music being made, and so how might you use that as part of your creative process? Do you, when you're going into the songwriting mode, do you maybe like to listen to lots of stuff at times, or do you block it out to try and have this, Orson Welles gave the line of, like, if you want to make a really great film and stuff like that, then don't watch anyone else's film. So, and the same might apply in music. If you want to make some great, wonderful, interesting music that people have never heard, then don't listen to what's gone on before. And just to kind of lead you in a bit as well, do you at times surprise yourself with, okay, I can hear one of my influences in this piece that I've just done, and I really didn't know that I was consciously, channeling that person, or, that kind of thing?
Because I wait until I'm inspired or get an idea to write a song, I don't have like that block it out time, now you're going to sit down and write. So I generally don't do that. In between, what I do like to do, though, is, because I call it like a little investment into myself, try to make sure I get out and hear other live music, go hear other people, friends of mine. I've got a show Friday night. Obviously, with as many people as I know, you can't go out every night and hear something, but, I try to make sure that in a year, if I've got 20 friends, that I've hit at least once. Some people play more than others, so, they're gigging every week. I'm not coming to see you every week, because at some point I need to be still and let something happen. And plus, there's other people to go hear. I do try to get out and hear other musicians, live music. People used to say I sounded a lot like Sarah Vaughan. They don't say that anymore. People used to say I sound a lot like Karen Carpenter. They don't sound. I've heard that if you put Roberta Flack and Karen Carpenter together, that my voice is what would come out. The two of those sounds, and there's a couple of things when I hear sometimes, and you can hear how much Karen Carpenter I used to listen to. Every blue moon, a certain thing I'll do. I like to keep. I always listen to music. It's very rare, but if you walk through on a Saturday and I'm vacuuming, you may hear Led Zeppelin coming out of my house, because I'm not one of those people that says I only listen to jazz or I only listen to. I have country music. I love Toby Keith. But you're going to hear Ella Fitzgerald. You're going to hear Miles Davis. You're going to hear Coltrane. And it's whatever mood I'm in. You're also going to hear me playing old James Cleveland or Walter Hawkins and his family singers. There's going to be gospel coming out of there. You will not hear rap coming out of my home. My cat doesn't like it. She's told me. So there's been a ban on rap in my house, because of the cat, though. I'm really sensitive to her.
No, there's not one. But is there one hip hoppy type track that you would say you like, that you've taken something from that musical form? Because that musical form certainly has drawn on jazz a lot, hasn't it? Or has there's a relationship at times between hip hop and jazz, isn't there?
Who got married? What relationship? Now, I didn't hear about this. I wasn't invited to no wedding. What you talking about, Willis?
I'm talking about albums like there's a Jazz-a-Mataz or something where people have Us Three. Do you know Us Three?
Who is that?
They sample and they fused jazz and hip hop. You know this thing. I'm not asking you to like it.
I did. Jill Scott has poetry set to really grooving music. I think they call her neo soul. I can handle that. They don't call her hip hop because she doesn't have a beat bite. Don't get me wrong. If I go out with a group of people to the club and we're going out to dance, I can dance with, I can groove to what's going on. But as far as what I'm bringing into my house that's going to take me to the next level, this is not the music I'm purchasing, because it's not the music I'm purchasing. I like to go back and listen to Patsy Cline. I don't know if you know who Patty Cathcart is. You've ever heard of Tuck and Patty? Tuck and Patty, he's an amazing guitar player. She's an amazing singer. These are people who I listened to came before me. I don't want to, I'm not a bitch or a hoe. I don't run around with bitches and hoes. I don't put money into the pockets of people who refer to women as bitches and hoes. And I understand trying to relate the human condition, but I can relate the human condition the way I do, and I can do it in a not negative way. I want to see the hope on the other side of it, because if at the end all you've done is cuss out the police, cuss out your girlfriend, cuss out your mama, and shoot your daddy, at the end all you are is still angry, aren't you? I don't, and so I don't want to take that into my spirit, and I don't want it coming out of my spirit. The easiest way to make sure that it doesn't come out of me is that I don't put it into me, food-wise. And
No, and so, but Ava, and so the way that we did observe this type of thing we did it via YouTube with that funny, curious track that was, that had 95 million views, and that wasn't necessarily hip hoppy stuff, but it was. I think that was you, because you introduced that to us, and so all I'm saying is, that's how you're keeping yourself abreast, aren't you? It's like we see this stuff on YouTube, it has such high views, so there's something about it that's working, and so it's kind of like, what might I, not that you want to necessarily make things like that, but what elements of that might I be able to draw on to just shape what I'm doing. Not as I say, not making that kind of sound and necessarily presenting it in that way, but just there's something going on, isn't there, that it connects through so much.
I like some of the beats. I like some of the beats, and don't get me wrong, you know, put a ring on it. You know, I can get with, you know, some of that track itself. Yeah. That track just stands alone. I like that track is fun, and so yeah, the beats are things that I like, and so I would use to just get myself up on what rhythmic patterns are going, and I guess I'm old school and I'm a little bit of a musical snob. I'm a lot of a musical snob. I ain't gonna lie to you. I still, I'm growing, but I'm more apt at this stage to go backwards than forwards as far as what I'm listening to and see who was on the cutting edge of what could go now, or what balances out if you take some of the new beats and put them on some things that were done in the past, what still works, even when you put a different beat on it or something like that. But still, as far as the lyrics, or the non-lyrics as I call them, I don't like a lot of that stuff. It makes me sad. No. It's really depressing.
No,
I know what you're saying, but I do like to see what people are doing. And I don't Twitter and I don't tweet, but I have a Facebook and a MySpace. And I am kind enough, generally, if someone says, listen to a track, I might listen to a piece of it. If within 4 bars you manage to offend me, I will just like, I'm done. I'm not going to listen to it. And when I say offend me, even if it's bad, you know, you've got one friend that has no clue that they are not a musician, but now they've decided that they want to do it. If they're trying, I'll listen, as long as they're not cursing people out and threatening to shoot and stuff like that. I'll listen because it's kind of, I want people to listen to me. But like I said, at the moment that my spirit is offended, I'm done. And
no, it's fine. I think the point that you just raised about looking back at what's gone before and how you might draw on that, that is what's going on with you and Wally. You know, that because you're from different times, so when you two come together to make music, that's what's going on, isn't it? You know, because there's an age difference. So that's adding. That's interesting. That's one of the strengths of the situation, because you've got two very different views on what's gone on, and two very different experiences of music.
What I like about him, though, is he is a forward thinker. Even though he, as far as learning songs, yes, has he had to learn some other things for the show? Yes, he has, and so have I that way. But when I say forward thinker, when you take into consideration that this man who's been playing jazz for this many years also had a high-hitting song with Rock the Boat, when he goes to write music, he pretty much never writes jazz. And when I go to write music, I pretty much never write jazz. I'm almost always writing country or blues. And he's still writing pop songs, and he's still getting songs at 83 years old, and he's, you know, still, and very prolific, I might add. And he writes a bit of gospel also. But we love to play jazz, and that's, you know, the music in our heart. But when we go to write, there's a different music coming out of our hearts also. And I think that's one of the things that actually helps keep us together, is that we love other things too. And it makes him a little different that way, like I say. And he will sit down and sometimes he's showing me something, some riffs that somebody was doing. You know, there's nothing new under the sun. Listen to this. And he'll show me some riffs from back in the 30s or something. And then when I'll say, listen to this, this song came out, I loved it. You know, case in point, Miranda Lambert, The House That Built Me, country song, we both absolutely adore that. And learning from it. We produce a country song on we have an artist that we signed, Mitch Harris, and we, you know, we're both working all around because really, isn't there just good music and bad music? That's what we think. You know, there's good music and bad music, and so we travel around a circle with it a little bit. But he's very much a forward thinker. He's got to be if he's going to be with me.
Right, this tape's just about done. Ava, just hold yourself steady so we do a sort